Now let's work on creating the recent orders horizontal list view. And we can see that this is going to be a column where we have the first widget being a text widget. And then underneath it, we're going to have a container which contains a list view. And it's going to scroll horizontally so we can see all of our recent orders. Inside our lib directory, we're going to create a new folder called widgets. And then the file will be recent_orders.dart. Here we can write stl, and that's going to give us the shortcut for the stateless widget called recent orders. And then remember to always import material.dart. In order to see what we're doing on the screen, let's go back to homescreen.dart. And then underneath the padding widget, so the end of the text field, we're going to add recent orders. And remember to import that. Hit save. And then back in recent orders, we can start building out this column widget. So let's remove container and we'll put column. The column's going to have children. And then the first child in the column will be a text widget, recent orders, and we'll style the text now. Font size 24.0, font weight.w600, so semi-bold. And then the last thing is letter spacing, which we'll set to 1.2. And when we hit save, we see that our recent orders appears on the screen, and I forgot an S here, so recent orders. And if we compare it to our desired UI, we see that the recent orders is on the left side of the screen. So the way we stick recent orders on the left side of the column is by accessing the cross-axis alignment, which is the horizontal part of the column. And then we cross-axis alignment .start. And that will start the recent orders on the left side. Let's add some padding to our text widget. Command period, add padding. Edge insets dot symmetric horizontal 20.0. And now our text is spaced nicely. In order to create the list view, underneath our padding widget, we need to first specify a container, which is going to have a set height. And we'll set that to 120. We'll add a color for now so we can see it easier. Colors.blue. And then the child will be a list view builder. And with awesome Flutter snippets, we can type in list view B, and that gives us the shortcut for list view builder. Hit enter. And then we'll set the item count to current user .orders .length. And make sure you import current user. We get current user from our data.dart file, our list of orders. Let's make our list of orders show up in our list view. So we're going to make a variable called order. Order equals current user dot orders index. And then let's return a text widget order.food.name. And if we hit save, we see that all of our orders are right here, but the scroll view is vertical. And we want our scroll view to be horizontal. And a simple fix to that is adding scroll direction and setting it to axis.horizontal. And now our text widgets scroll horizontally. Now let's build the function that's going to display each of our recent orders. We can erase this and replace it with build recent order. And we're going to pass in the context so we can access the color and then the order. Now back at the top of our recent orders, we're going to write build recent order, build context, context, order, order. And if we take a look at our UI again, we can see that our recent order cell, it has a container with a light border around it, and then consists of a row widget, where the row widget has an image with rounded corners, and then a column widget with 3 text widgets inside, and then a button for the icon. So let's start by building out our container. let's return container. We'll add margin edge insets dot all 10.0. We'll set the width to 320 pixels. And then decoration, box decoration, color, colors.white. And we'll see how that looks. Now we have our boxes here. Let's add a border radius. Border radius dot circular 15.0. And then for the light gray border around our container, we can add border dot all, and then we'll set the width to 1.0 and the color to colors.gray 200. And it's a bit hard to see, but if we remove the color of our container, it'll be easier. And now we see the containers with their gray borders. Now let's create our row widget, and it's going to have the image first. So the child of the container will be a row, children. And then to add the image, we'll do image, image, asset image. And since we pass in the order, we know the order has a food, and the food has an image URL. Let's hit save. And now the food appears in each one of the containers. But let's make it constrained to a certain size. So we can add a height property to our image and make that 100.0, and we'll make the width 100.02. In order to take up the entire height and width of our box, we can set fit boxfit.cover. And that's going to stretch it out. Now we have to add rounded corners to our image, and we can easily do that by wrapping our image with a new widget. So command period, go down to wrap with new widget, clip our rect. And clip our rect will have a border radius dot circular 15.0, and hit save. And now we have our images here. Next we need to add a column that's going to contain 3 different text widgets. So below our clip our rect, let's put a comma, and then we'll make a column widget with children. The first widget will be text widget, order.food.name. Next we have order.restaurant.name, and then order.date. And our text appeared now. To make it left aligned, we can access cross-axis alignment like we did before. Cross-axis alignment.start. And then to center our column in the container, we can access main axis alignment.center. And that centers our text now. Now it's time to style our text. Let's add style, text style, font size 18.0, font weight.bold. And now the name of our order is bold. For the restaurant name, style text style, font size 16.0. And then we'll make the font weight semi-bold, so that's font weight.w600. And lastly, for the order date, we can just copy our style here and put it after the order date. Now in the event this text becomes very long, we don't want to see an error. Instead, we want the text to just show ... And the way we do this is by adding an overflow property, text overflow .ellipsis. And we can copy that for each one of these. And compared to our UI, we have some spacing around our column, and we also have some spacing between each of our text widgets. So let's add size boxes between each of these. size box, height 4.0. And we'll copy that again in between the restaurant name and the order date. In order to add some margin around our column, we're going to wrap our column in a container. And then set the margin edge insets dot all 12.0. And the reason we use margin instead of padding is because if we have a button over here, padding would still allow our text to go to the end and touch the button, but by adding margin, we add a limit to how far our text can go. And the last thing we need to add to our recent orders is the icon button. So let's go down, and then after our container widget here, let's create another container, and this is going to have a margin edge insets dot only right 20.0, and that's going to ensure that there's a margin on the right side of the container. Next, we'll set the width to 48.0. The decoration will be box decoration, color theme.of context.primary color, and the border radius will be border radius.circular 30.0. And that's going to create a container with rounded corners. Now all we have to do is add the icon button, icon, icons.add. The icon size will be 30.0, and the color will be colors.white. And then we just need onPressed, and that sets the color of our button. Now in order to push this button all the way to the right side, we need to wrap our image and our column in a row widget. And then we can use the property of our main axis alignment for our larger row container and set it to space between. And that's going to push our icon button all the way to the right side of our container. So let's go back up and wrap the clip rect with a row widget. Then let's highlight container, and this is the container containing our column. On Mac, if we hold down Alt and click up, that moves our container up 2 lines into our row widget, and then we can auto format. And once we hit save, nothing should change yet because we didn't apply the main axis alignment property. So main axis alignment dot space between, and that pushes our button all the way to the right side. Now let's try testing our overflow by adding more characters to our text widgets. Hit save. We see that the text widget pushes our icon button off the screen, and that's not what we want. What we have to do instead is wrap our container containing our column in a widget called expanded. And once we hit save, we see that our widget disappears because the column does not have a defined width. And that's because we need to also wrap our entire row containing the image and the container in an expanded widget too. And now we see that our text reappears. So what this is doing is it's taking this row, which contains the image and the column, expanding it to as large as it can be from the icon button. And then inside the container widget here, we use expanded again to expand this container to the largest width it can be. And then our icon button container stays in the same place because we set the margin to edge insets.only right. So no matter what, our icon button will always be on the right side. And if our recent orders container was longer for any reason, then our expanded widget wrapping our column would expand to as large as it can fit between the image and the icon button. Now we can remove the extra text here because we know it's working. And the very last thing we have to do is add a little bit more padding on the left side of our recent orders list view because we want it to be in line with our text and our search bar. So if we scroll down to our list view builder, we can add padding, edge insets, dot only, left, and it would be 10.0 because the margin on each of our containers is 10.0. So by adding 10.0 padding on the left side, that'd make it 20.0. And we can scroll, and it looks good. If you're on an Android phone and you want to have the bounciness of a list view, then all you have to do is add something called physics, bouncing scroll physics. And this won't have any effect on iOS because iOS lists are naturally bouncy. But if you're on Android, you're not going to have the rough stop. And then it'll bounce just like on iOS devices.